This is Max Shears of Pro Boxing Fans. I'm like joined once again by Adam Smith. Adam, I'm gonna get straight into obviously we're edging towards Moses Itauma, Dillian White fight week. I want to start off with what does a win for Moses Itauma? What does that actually mean for his career on the biggest stage, topping a Riyadh season bill? How big is that?
Well, it'll be huge, and it's the stepping stone that he believes, and Francis Warren and Frank Warren, I'm sure, believe is the right time to be taking a fighter like Dillian White on. The big question is, have they got it right, or is this a big banana skin? Is this I go back to nights like Carl Thompson beating David Hay when he was given the big build up and him not really being ready for it or ready to handle a crisis or a situation. But then he learned from it and came back, and we all know the history of David Hay. So whatever happens next Saturday with Moses Attama, it's all part of the education. I think obviously he starts as a favourite because of his form. He's undefeated in 12, 10 knockouts, perfect record as an amateur. And I've said many times what I love about Moses is the fact that other great heavyweights talk about him in such glowing terms. If you ask AJ, you ask Tyson, you ask Lawrence Okolie, Joe Joyce, all of the sort of heavyweights that have worked with him, he's really admired, and I think he's very, very good. What I've seen is a slick southpaw who's got the speed of a middle, a super middle, and has got the power of a heavyweight. He's awkward to fight. His timing is terrific, and they obviously believe that he can go all the way and very quickly. I'm not sure about this talk of Usyk against Itauma, but if he looks amazing on the 16th, then His Excellency might again push for that. I wonder whether that's a little soon, whether he needs to build further. If he beats Dillian White, then maybe a McCauley or something like that, and then a route to a world title. But yeah, you have to get the fights right. The timing of it, matchmaking is so important, and that's, I think, probably Frank Warren's biggest strength. The way he's matched fighters over the years to exactly the right point of their career. You look at Joe Calzaghe when he fought Jeff Lacey. You look at Ricky Hatton when he fought Costa Sue. You look at Nassim Hamed against Kevin Kelly. Those sort of fighters where his guy just had the little edge, and they obviously got to perform in the ring, and that's what Moses has to do. But he's told me several times that he wants to fight for a world title as soon as possible. So he'll see Dillian White is a terrific fighter who's maybe had his best times and a great name to get on the record, a wonderful scalp. But I think the danger is if Moses doesn't get him out of there in rapid fire, what happens? Because Dillian White, as we know, is a terrific gladiator. He fears no man. He's had the hardest of upbringings. He's had the toughest in many ways of these heavyweights careers. He's really learned the hard way. Didn't have a big amateur resume. He beat Joshua in the amateurs. He obviously lost that fight for the British title, but he's bounced back time and again, and he's got big names on his record. You know, the likes of Chisora and Parker and yeah, massive experience. I remember when I was at Sky, he was almost sort of having his own box office shows, and whoever he fought, Oscar Rivas, whoever it was a great night because Dillian White was fighting Lucas Brown and others. So Dillian's got all the experience, and he looks in great shape, and he would have really trained hard for this, and he'll really want to prove a point in this fight. So it makes it a mouth-watering match. When I first heard it, I thought this was the right time for Moses Itauma to be taking something like that. If he's talking about a world championship, then he's got to be beating the likes of Dillian White. But it is a big step in fight number 13. It's a big one, and the more I hear about Dillian in the build up, in preparation, in training camp, the more I like his chances again in the fight. I like the fact that if he can withstand maybe the early storm, maybe he can take Moses Attama to a place that he's not comfortable with. That said, we've seen Dillian knocked out by Alexander Povetkin, by Tyson Fury, but this is a big level by AJ. You know, these are very, very top fighters, and Moses hasn't. He may well be as good, if not better, than those guys in the long run, but he hasn't proved it yet. So yeah, it's fantastic that Moses Itauma is taking a name like Dillian White at this stage. But I think it's brilliant that Dillian's got that pride in him, and still he's won his last few fights, and he wants to still compete at the highest level, and he knows this is his chance to impress Turkey Al Sheikh and Saudi and the whole heavyweight climate. So yeah, it's a big opportunity for both of them. But obviously, the younger, fresher man, maybe the bigger puncher, although you've got to fear for White's left hook at stages, is what should get him through. But yeah, we've seen the heavyweight division blown wide open time and again. So we can't count any chickens. Dillian White is well in this fight, and he's very capable of winning it. But I just like Moses Attama. I think he's particularly special, and I think he is the heir apparent.
Definitely. Like I say, I'm sure you saw it when the fight went out. A lot of people said this is Dillian White maybe looking for a payday. He's not up for it. I imagine how wrong would we be to write off Dillian White in this fight?
I think Dillian White will fight anybody. That's what I love about him. He's a cult character in British boxing. He's never ducked a challenge, and as I said, he had a particularly turbulent childhood in Jamaica. He had some really horrendous situations he had to deal with, and I think when he came over to England and he was sort of bullied, didn't speak a lot of English, became a dad very young. He had to grow up really quickly, and he grew up in the gyms, and he took his opportunity and he goes in with anybody, and he's a gladiator. So he'll not worry about this one little bit. He was annoyed with his team when he had to pull out of a fight a while ago when he dropped a weight on his finger, and he's like, he's almost the guy doesn't feel any pain, and he's being honest. He said one of us is getting sparked out. So I think yeah, Dillian is going to be really up for this because it is obviously money. He's being paid well, but he knows it's a ticket to more money and more gold, more treasure, and a chance to fight different people. He's always said he wants to fight different people. He's been in with AJ, he's been in with Fury. He'd love to have an opportunity to fight Itama. He'd love to have an opportunity, I think, to fight Deontay Wilder. There are other fights he wants. He wants to fight fighters that he hasn't had the chance to share a ring with, and now he gets the young pretender, and we can't wait.
I'm not sure if you've seen it, but Tyson Fury said that he's almost worried for a time that it might turn into a fight almost like Jared Anderson versus Martin McCauley. Is there a chance of that, or just what do you make of that?
Of course, there's a chance of that. There's a chance that Moses Itauma could win early. There's a chance he could walk on to something because Dillian White can punch too. He didn't look the quickest, Dillian, I didn't think, against Moses Itauma out in Gibraltar. He won the fight well enough, but maybe they're just banking a little bit on that speed, slightly going at 37. But yes, there's always that possibility. McCauley was not written off against Jared Anderson, but he was meant to be the American heir apparent. But I've never rated Anderson as highly as I read Attama. I've been around boxing a long time, and I've got plenty wrong, and I think that I've said on record, I wrote a piece on him earlier in the year. I think Moses Itauma is going to become a world champion. I think he's going to become a great in our sport, but he might have to go through a few bumps on the road, and sometimes that's dealing with a knockdown or a bad situation in a fight. Sometimes it's dealing with stuff outside of a ring and mentally keeping strong, and sometimes it's dealing with the defeat and how you come back from it. What we've seen with Dillian White, how he came back from the Joshua defeat. I mentioned David Haye earlier, how he came back from Carl Thompson. There's been many others who have lost and come back stronger. So a loss at this stage is not a massive thing for Moses at the age of 20, and against a Dillian White, who is a big step up from the other fighters who are decent that he's been in with, but not at that level. So yeah, boxing's all about levels and timing, and the level at the moment, Moses probably should be at that world level at some stage, but he's not there yet. But the timing might be spot on, or it might be a bad move. We don't know, and we'll only know in the ring and on the night. Anything can happen, right? Two fighters have got to be switched on. There's always that shade of luck you need that everything goes your way. But I've been super impressed with the way Moses Attama has gone about his business with the preliminary opposition. I've talked to people in his amateur club. I've talked to people on the scene all around. I've talked to Usyk about him, and I know that Moses would love to share a training camp with Usyk and stuff like that. I think he'll say he'd fight Usyk tomorrow, but I think reality, that's probably not the fight he wants at the moment. It is that building process. Francis Warren has to get it absolutely right, and his dad's got a great track record. But we know with heavyweights things can change. Fabio Wardley proved that at Ipswich a few weeks back with one shot. You just never know. So that's what makes it compelling. That's what makes the intrigue, the fascination. That's why we're all going to be there or watching it on the zone. Cannot wait to see if Moses can step up or whether Dillian White's got a trick or two up his sleeve and can reignite his own career. Because if he does, he's right in the mix. If he beats Itauma, he's in with the big boys again straight away. And if he doesn't, then it's obviously a good scalp on Moses' record, and he'll go onwards. And it'll be very interesting to see if it is dramatic in Itauma's favour, whether His Excellency and others will start talking about Usyk, or whether the Warren camp may be thinking more the Martin McCauleys or the sort of the ones just before that. I mean, there's so many waiting for their opportunity. Joseph Parker, Ajit Kabayel, two of the main guys, but there's others. Lawrence Okolie closing in. There's just a huge amount of heavyweights at the moment. Where's Deontay Wilder? He'll be pitching up at some point soon. AJ, all the talk of a possible Tyson Fury match. Will he fight Jake Paul? Tyson Fury wants Usyk again. There's a lot of a puzzle to be solved, or the jigsaw pieces to be worked out. And His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh is putting on the massive shows and the big fights, and again he'll have a lot of input. But also the Warren team around Moses will, and Dillian's now fighting under the Warren banner. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what unfolds on August the 16th. And beyond, the autumn and winter, and if Moses does win, how quickly they're going to move him.
Definitely. Now you speak about levels, and I want to ask you because obviously you say you've got so many years in this game, you've seen so many fighters. We've all seen the comparisons, we've all seen the sparring stories, and I know it's so early in his career, but as a prospect, where does Moses Itauma stack up to young fighters like a Mike Tyson at 20 years? Where could he stack up?
I think Moses is a fabulous young prospect. I really do. I think he's got everything that's there, and it's just about how he's maneuvered through the complex world that is a boxing journey, particularly at heavyweight. He's young at 20. How does he compare to a Mike Tyson? I mean, our Mike Tyson was probably a bit of a one-off. He just had that, not just the magnetism, but the ferocity and the fear that he installed in his journey, and fighters seem to be almost terrified of him before the first bell. I don't think Moses is like that. I think it's difficult to compare, but as a young prospect, I've not seen a heavyweight I'm this excited about since. I mean, you can say when AJ and Tyson Fury turned on the scene, but even going back to Lennox Lewis, Moses didn't have that extensive amateur record. AJ struck gold, so obviously there was that real excitement about him, and especially as well because he had that sort of X factor, and we knew he would light up the screens. And then Tyson, of course, coming through, and other heavyweights, but I think Moses Itauma is certainly in and amongst those names of fighters to get really, really excited about. I like the fact that he's got his feet on the ground. I love the fact that he is dedicated and disciplined and is part of Ben Davison's thriving stable. He's got a great team around him with Ben, with Francis, with Frank, with so much wisdom. And I've spent a great deal of time with him already. I've spoken to people in his amateur club where he was undefeated in the unpaid ranks. He's never lost a fight. And I've spoken to a number of heavyweights who he's trained with, sparred with, and they're top level, most of them. And they have nothing but praise to say about Moses Itauma. And it's rare. It's rare that normally you'll have one or two saying, oh, he got knocked out then, or he was not good enough, or he was too raw, but pretty much universally you hear from the fighters themselves, and the fighters themselves are key. They're the ones that have shared a ring with him, and everything I'm hearing, when he went to spar Tyson Fury before Usyk, when he's worked in Joshua's camp, when he worked with Joe Joyce when he was a kid, all of the whispers that you hear are very, very positive. And with my own eyes, I see a terrific talent who is doing exactly what's being asked of him, fight by fight. He wants to move quickly. He's dangerous. He's very, very hard hitting. He's quick. He's got a great boxing IQ. He's defensively savvy. But I think possibly the southpaw style is the one that's really important here. You think of how many top heavyweight southpaws there have been. Remember Audley Harrison striking gold as a southpaw. Michael Moorer was obviously a very good southpaw heavyweight, but they're not many. There are many more Portsiders that are getting into boxing. I remember one time, I think James DeGale, Billy Joe Saunders, and Frankie Gavin all turning professional on the same Frank Warren night, all southpaws. So more are creeping into the game. You see Alexander Usyk, of course, the epitome. But the southpaw style gave AJ all the trouble in the world at Spurs, and it actually gave Daniel Dubois all the trouble at Wembley as well. That southpaw style, if you use it correctly, is a massive advantage. So there are not many southpaw heavyweights. I think that Moses Itauma is the heir apparent. I think that he can take over when Alexander Usyk has left the building at some stage. I hope he gets his homecoming in Ukraine. That's really important to me to see that, if it can be happen, if it's safe. I think he would absolutely love that. Do I think the two of them should fight right now? No, but it's step by step with Moses. And as I said, there are going to be bumps in the road, whether they are difficult moments in the ring, knockdowns, even a knockout, or there are issues outside the ring like injuries, not getting a fight, keeping strong under pressure and under all this pressure that's on him, that's saying this is the next guy, Moses Itauma. It's like the heir apparent, all of that. Francis Warren saying he's the next Messi, he's going to be a Federer, he's going to. Those are huge expectations, and of course, that's the aim. That's their job, and commercially he could be massive, of course. And we all want a new star. But Daniel Dubois, has had that opportunity. Former world champion. He'll come again at 27, despite the defeat to Usyk, and he's bounced back. And I'm sure that Moses will at some point have to. Will it be now, or will it be later on down the road? That's what we're all looking forward to finding out. But yes, if I take him as a prospect, I'm not in any way demeaning my good friend Dillian White, who is a fantastic fighter and has fought at a much higher level than Moses, and has definitely got a live chance in this fight. Not only early, but later, if he can drag Itauma into the trenches. So no way. This is a fight which is a real live fight, and it's a fascinating one. But if I look at Moses just on his own and how I think he'll develop, he's doing everything that's asked of him. Step by step, it's right. And I believe we've got a superstar in our hands in British boxing.